commercial and industrial, and a whole bunch of other things.
It's interesting.
All right, everyone, we're going to call this meeting to order tonight. And actually, let me pull up the agenda. I think that's here, right? Yep.
We were actually deeply in a environmental discussion already.
I keep going. No, I'm kidding. We will circle back to that discussion a little bit later then. So tonight I want to start off with new and member introductions. We have a couple people, either one who was here last time but didn't have a chance to introduce themselves on the board, and then we have a new appointee. So I'm going to have Lauren introduce herself, and then Jen right after. Lauren, if you'll come off of mute, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, what your interest in the board is, and your background a bit.
I don't know if she heard.
Lauren, can you hear us?
I think her mic is off. Your mic is off, Lauren. Not talking.
Yeah, I don't think she's talking.
She's got a signal.
Well, she's figuring out that piece. Let's see if Jen, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself? Can they hear us?
That may be the problem.
Let's see. We're off of mute.
Okay. If anybody can hear us, would somebody turn your mic on and say hello?
Hear you? Okay. Okay, yep. So either Jen or Lauren, if you're able to come off of mute and introduce yourselves, that'd be great. And if not, we'll circle back to that. There's Lauren. Okay, great. Except we still can't hear you, Lauren.
Check your mic on your computer.
Lauren, can you hear us? Wave your hand if you can hear us.
I don't think she can hear us either.
Well,
1 second, just some technical difficulties, but we will figure it out. Oh, she's saying she'll switch to her phone. Okay, well, let's circle back to that when she gets on. Let's see what's next on our. Well, let's do the approval of the minutes. I'm gonna have to look to you with that in terms of.
Yeah, so you all had a chance to look at the meeting minutes. There was a slight change, which I had sent out earlier to you all, mostly in wording, with no removed content or added content. So with that, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as they are presented?
So moved.
second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? On to
Public comment. Do we have anyone in the room who would like to speak? Look at you, Jane. No? Okay. Anyone on Zoom who would like to make a public comment this evening? Okay. Looks like Lauren, you're back on. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hopefully this works.
Yep, we can hear you. Success.
There we go. Perfect. Sorry, Zoom is kind of funky on my computer sometimes. But yeah, so I'm excited to join the Sustainability Board. I was appointed by Maggie Ballard, so I'm in District 6. I live on the northwest side of town around 96th and Ridge area. But yeah, my name's Lauren Clary. My husband and I live in Northwest Wichita. We're in a neighborhood. It's funny, during one of our HOA meetings last year, the item of putting in solar panels in our homeowners association ordinances kind of came up, and that kind of got me interested. But I work for Kansas Gas Service, and I am the community relations manager for the area. And so I'm super excited to see how we as the natural gas utility can also help to partner with the city to make, reduce emissions and make it a better city for everyone.
Great, thanks, Lauren.
Yes, thanks.
I will retry with Jen, or Jen, if you're there and want to give us an introduction, we'd love to hear from you. All right, we'll move on from there. Okay, so we already did public comments. I did see someone come in, so if you have anything you'd like to say today.
Adam,
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
I did the same thing.
So this is great because we can spend a good portion of the hour and a half that we have on the discussion items. Any board updates before we go to the discussion today? No one in the room? How about on Zoom? Anyone with a board update on Zoom?
Is this for representatives from other boards?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Jack Brown. I'm with the Bike Ped Advisory Board. In fact, this past Monday was my last meeting. I've been on the board for a number of years and finally maxed out on my tenure. But bottom line, the only update I have is I had sent our recommendations for the CIP and the general operating budget and provided those to Nina. So I think those were distributed. That's the recommendations for bike projects from our February meeting. But our March meeting, not a lot going on. We approved one project on West Street that has side paths from down to 47th Street South, sort of a walking, biking side path, 10-foot wide. Not a big project. The other item on our agenda for March was the meeting the new police officer in charge of traffic safety, and he's very interested in working with the board on bicycle and pedestrian automobile crashes. There's been a lot of work. Pardon?
Who is that? The
I'm
officer?
sorry, I should have mentioned his name. Yeah, Captain Nicholson,
Captain Nicholson.
Wendell Nicholson.
Thank you.
Other than that, we basically, several of us bid our fond farewell to the Bike Ped Board. And of course, one of the items on their next month's agenda will be someone to replace me on this board, another representative from the Bike Ped Board. So I'll be leaving this board, but I think I'll try and drop in from time to time, see what's going on, and maybe provide some public comment as the group moves forward. And that's basically all I have. I can send correspondence we have from our March meeting out to the group as well, just for general purposes.
That's good, Jack. Well, thank you for your service on the board, and we'll look forward to having you, like you said, provide public comment along the way and some support in that way, or maybe join one of the committees we're going to start talking about today.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds good. Great. Okay. Any other board members who want to talk about their respective board?
The single-use plastic bag task force is on hold.
Okay.
We are waiting to find out what happened today. Did you hear anything, Tammy?
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, no, I haven't heard yet either.
In terms of what's happening at the state?
State.
Okay.
Yeah, they were supposed to vote in the House Commerce Committee today. That was when they were meeting. Did they vote? Did they do something else? I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't gotten an update yet.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Okay, great. Any other last call on any other board updates? Okay, so what I wanted to start off with today is just starting to create more of our vision. In the very first meeting, we talked about how we need to, on the one hand, have some really strong wins this first year in terms of actionable items that we can actually make happen, this year. But we also talked about what do we actually want to accomplish with this board in the long run. So I wanted to start with that discussion. I'm going to use the whiteboard and have us kind of think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do we want Wichita to look like? What is our vision for Wichita, you know, in these different timeframes? What would you like to see? So, and I think that'll help us in the long run figure out what the next steps are going to be, what the committees are going to be, which is the second half of today's conversation. But I'll start with the vision. So I've got some, but I would love to hear you all first.
I think we should be working on, and focusing on public education, awareness that basically everything that we've been doing for all these years should not continue business as usual. It's just sustainable. Well, I mean, everything, and people need to learn about it.
The public education, not in the sense of our school system as such, but public education of.
Consumer education. Consumer education.
Yeah.
I remember when 25 years ago, we started with the Greenways Commission, trying to convince people that pathways and sidewalks were a good idea, and got pushback like you wouldn't believe. And now that attitude's changed. So it is possible. It just may take a while.
We don't have a while, that's the problem.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly.
Well, but you know, what's a while, I guess, in the sense of how long did it take to actually change hearts and minds on that?
About a decade.
Yeah, that's longer than we have.
Yeah.
But having said that, I don't think we're starting at zero. I mean,
Yeah, this is true.
this is, I think we have generations of kids and young adults now who heard messages along these lines that maybe you or I didn't get. So although we don't have, I don't think we're starting at zero. I think we have a good base. to start with.
Just as a side but relevant to this, I went to the Commodity Classic last week, all about agriculture. And a lot of the discussion was around sustainability in ag. So, you know, agriculture is an area not that necessarily, well, it does affect Wichita, but we're seeing those changes in all these different sectors where it's a conversation now. So I agree with what you just said. I think we've hit a point where we should be able to capitalize on all the previous work to get this going faster. But I think you're right, Michael. One of the areas that we really could work on is the messaging around it.
In 2021, with all the extreme weather around the world, most people, at least in the States, are starting to acknowledge, wow, maybe something is going wrong.
Yeah, I think one of the areas, you know, whether you still have folks who don't believe it's human-based or not, the message can be to some degree, whether it's human or not, we still have to deal with the changes that are happening, right? Now, I think most of us in the room think it is human-driven, but if to help messaging in general, you can go that way. What else? What are some other things that you all would like to see in the next, say, 10 years change here in Wichita?
I would also like to see more public transit developed, and we have to have a public relations campaign to make that something that people would consider.
And by the way, those of you who are on Zoom, please feel free to jump in with your thoughts as well. This is definitely an open discussion for everyone, both on Zoom and in person. How about you, Lori? What would you like to see?
So much.
What are some of them?
We need to, waste is a big issue for us. And there are a lot of ways to tackle that.
Reducing waste. Obviously, the plastic bag or plastic is an area that.
Well, that and compost, I mean, there's a whole list of things.
We could be doing better.
To reduce waste or eliminate waste.
I
Use
love
waste.
to focus, I mean, just this is, I love that you use reduce waste as opposed to recycle. I'm a total recycler, but that word,
Recycling is,
we have to go back to reduce and reuse. So I think that's a brilliant messaging. It's reducing and reusing it. You know, people who are going to recycle are already recycling. They're not going to.
and most of that's still going to the landfill.
So it's, so I love that is the focus as opposed to just driving recycling.
I might add a comment. This is Jack. I don't know the current status, but apparently the city's 10-year solid waste agreement with the local solid waste collectors is expiring, I think, this year. I was going to look for some information on that before the meeting, didn't get a chance. But as I recall, that was a an agreement with all the local solid waste collector haulers to provide some type of recycling, which I don't know how well that's being done, except by the big companies. But it might be good to look into that 10-year plan and see if it comes up again before the council, it might be an opportunity to have some input into a revised 10-year plan. But again, I apologize. I don't know the status of that solid waste plan, but we might want to take a look at that if possible.
Hey, Jack, I think it expires in August. That's if I remember right.
Okay, so maybe that's something that we could look at and make some recommendations on.
I agree, Jack. I did not know that they had a 10-year agreement, but I remember 10 years ago when I started on the advisory board, and that was contentious. But we have got to make a change with the trash haulers, and we can do that better now because there are so few of them.
Yeah, the argument repeatedly over the years has been, well, but it's small businesses, we can't. Well, it's not anymore.
Right.
Very much.
That's consolidated into it. Lauren, I saw you come off of, or come onto a video. Did you have something you wanted to say? Or am I just calling you out without that reason?
I'm sorry, and can you repeat what we were trying to put down on the board?
Yeah, so basically what the exercise we're doing right now is what is our vision? What would we like to see Wichita be or change in the next 10 years? So. I'll do one while you're.
Want to think about it while I talk?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, I want to
Yeah.
go for some twofers. Planting trees. It's simple. It reduces carbon, it reduces heat island, it increases wildlife habitat. We need to, because so many of our trees are dying. So there's like all the reasons to and very few reasons not to, and I don't think we'd get a lot of pushback. So I think it's something we could be successful doing a campaign on that. And along with that, and I mentioned this at one of the earlier meetings, starting to transition on rights of way to native plants and wildflowers for wildlife habitat, for bees, for less mowing with those god awful 2-stroke engines that they used to mow with. You know, I mean, there's just all kinds of good reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
They sound simple, but they have multiple good effects.
Let's see, so trees.
So tangible, you see it.
Yeah.
Some of that we also need to transmit to homeowners too.
Yes,
Because now you have to have your grass 10 inches high and that's it. You
and
can't grow stuff.
well, it's very tricky. You have to put a border around it to show that it's intentional and say it's a garden. If it's just what looks like your lawn growing too tall, you will get cited. Yeah, but that's the kind of silly little thing that a little public education could make a big difference.
Right. People don't even realize what they might do. And I'm lucky because my neighbors don't care. Half my backyard I didn't mow and I got sunflowers, Kansas native sunflowers. I got salsify come up. I didn't even know what it was. I had to ask. I mean, it was amazing to see all the grasses that got so tall. We have to make a change.
And speaking of what homeowners can do, rain gardens and handling stormwater runoff by not letting it run off. That's something that the smaller the scale, the better. If every homeowner has a rain barrel or a small rain garden in their yard, that has downstream effects that affect our stormwater system and waterways and rivers and aquatic life and a bunch of other things. So again, small scale, relatively uncontroversial stuff that I think could make a surprisingly big difference if we get enough people to buy into it.
Which leads me to a question. I mean, what on this board can we do through the city, kind of public things like that? Is that part of our?
We'll have to talk to our communications team, but we do want to do public outreach and education, so we'll just have to figure out
How that works?
yeah, figure out the best plan of attack to do that. But we, this board does have resources from the city.
Do y'all cooperate with, I'm sorry, do y'all cooperate with the school system at all on that? Because almost every school has at least like one little wildflower garden or rain garden, because some teacher has gotten a group of kids to get involved with it.
I don't believe we currently partner with schools for that. I know we partner with them for different things. That is something that we can strengthen in the future. You know, multiple avenues of working with our different school districts.
While we're talking about getting education and things out there, have you made any progress on setting us up a page for the sustainability board? I know you said that months ago, and I'm just wondering.
No, I have not. It's on my long list, but
I know.
what we're hoping to do is to revamp the sustainability efforts page that is housed under Public Works. So it's a work in progress, and the websites are undergoing revisions right now anyway. There's a lot of talk of improving websites, and so it's a part of a larger project.
So this could be a couple of years.
If we want to do a whole overhaul, it will be a little bit of time, but right now, I'm trying to add information on there as we go, all of our minutes and when our board meetings are. But yes, I would like to change it up some more and make it more dedicated to this board and the efforts that we're doing. So it's something we can definitely work on. Sure.
If we have a committee on messaging, of which I'm going to suggest later, is that something that they could work with you on?
Yeah, I think so. And we'll just have to rope in the appropriate staff for the website side to get that up. But yeah, that should be no problem.
Okay, good. Okay, what else, guys? There's got to be more, and I've got some too that I can add in. And you had one, I think. Are you raising your?
I was going to amend the discussion on trees. Trees take a long time to grow. And we heard a presentation recently on grasses, not only grasses that don't take much water, but that grow significantly enough to make a difference in city landscapes. And that was also including driveways with semi-permeable drainage, so that there are strips planted with grasses, so that it's not solid concrete, and that it is absorbing water like a rain garden.
What I'll add is a big one, and this is one of the things that we were talking a lot about with the city when we were pushing for the board, is thinking ahead to make Wichita a city that youth are going to want to stay in. That's a big one. You know, so we're looking at the different, whether it's sustainability, equity, you know, all these different issues that are going to keep jobs, that are going to keep youth here. That's definitely, I think, part of our youth retention. I probably have the biggest one of all, which is okay as the chair, and you guys can, you know, harness me in. But I would love to see Wichita 10 years from now be known as the capital of sustainability. Our nation, right? It's big, tall order, but shoot for the stars, right? So.
So how are you defining sustainability?
That's always a big question, Jane. For me, it's a few things. Let me write this. I can spell sustainability. It's embarrassing. Let's see. Okay. Need time to think too.
Hey, this is Philip. Can I have a caveat as well?
Sure.
I would like to say we also need to think about when we do these things, people that are economically disadvantaged. You know, since I live in the 3rd district, and there are a lot of people that live below the poverty line. So, you know, I always think about those things when we you know, make decisions when we do things. So.
Justice.
Or disadvantaged. Jane, to your question, what do I mean by sustainability? I think that's multiple. I think it's all the things that we're talking about here in the sense of wanting to make sure that, Wichita is bringing in jobs of the future. That's part of being sustainable. That we are trying to create systems that are going to be long-term and not harm the environment, whether that's through what we talked about with reducing waste or public transportation or habitat creation. Any of these things all fall under that heading. Sustainability it's a broad, so it can be what we want it to be, but my goal is that we're seen as a leader in that over the coming years, and that this is our first step towards that. Again, big goal, that's my goal. But if we are aiming towards that, then we'll get at least partway there, right? That's the
So we're gonna
stars.
compare ourselves to other similar sized cities and
Hopefully.
establish some kind of metrics to measure ourselves against.
Good.
Well, one of the ways that we currently do that is through CDP scoring.
I know about that, and we don't have a very good score, so we can really improve.
So we can already see how we compare right now in those sort of brackets that they put us in. And we'll be filling out the new survey soon. It opens in April.
CDP.
So we have a chance to, with the things that we've done in the past year,
The AC.
a little bit.
score.
Right. They won't be doing, I talked to them in December, they won't be doing a 2022 version since they got thrown off with COVID, but they will be doing 2023. So that gives us a little bit more time to get our ducks in a row and then really that score.
I mean, one of the areas that we scored poorly in was public interaction, and that's an easy way to improve.
What else? We haven't talked about energy efficiency at all. Was that where you're going, Jane? Okay. So energy efficiency.
Energy reduction. Changing to electricity. And not
Transition.
fossil fuel.
Anything else from those on Zoom? Lauren, I called you out earlier.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I think we're in a unique opportunity right now with gasoline prices being high to maybe have more of an impact on alternative transportation, developing more bike paths, more making it safer to bike, to be on your bicycle, and to in some of those areas that are maybe kind of scary right now and maybe hinder. But I think with the high price of gasoline and diesel, people are probably looking at some of that stuff now where they hadn't been before.
That's good. Well, and kind of to that point, public transportation, but also getting us ready for electric vehicles is another kind of infrastructure around that.
Charging infrastructure.
And that could be, right, one of the things that we'll have to address those is building codes and standards, right? So that.
Yeah.
That's
Just gonna say that.
For example, if electric vehicle charging is your thing, then you create a building code that every home at this much square footage or greater has to at least have a 220 charger in the garage or something, access to 220 in the garage or something along those lines.
Apartment buildings should have access to charging.
Yeah.
Or some sort of the multifamily, and we just recently got rebates for residential chargers. You can get a rebates now for installing for electric vehicle charging in the garage for the charger part. So, I think those go hand in hand. You want that home of the future so that it's easy, right? So if I think about going to buy an electric vehicle, I don't have to think about the work that's going to be done.
What is our geographic? Because if we're strictly city of Wichita, then
Yes.
absolutely. But a lot of the growth is in the small cities around Wichita, the exurbs, the suburbs. And some of them don't even address electric vehicle anything in their zoning codes. They just don't have it and don't want to have it and don't know anything about it. And that's where the homes are getting built.
So, right, so any policy that you all recommend to city council is going to be effective or Wichita city limits. But, you know, there's opportunity to partner with Sedgwick County,
Okay, good.
and, you know, that way it's
The
metropolitan.
the building inspection and the zoning are all countywide, so
Wichita does it, other cities might think about it, maybe.
we can hope.
We can hope. Lead by example in a sense.
I think that sort of regulatory thing is mostly through MAPD. So it's going to be countywide plus Andover plus Mulvane anyway. And that, but you're right. I don't think most builders will do it unless they're required to do it. Just because they will feel like they will then get out competed by the builders who aren't bothering to put these expensive things in. But if it's a regulation and they're all in an even playing field, then they're fine with it.
Makes sense. Which kind of leads to, so smart infrastructure in general, so having more of a smart city is another vision for us.
Regulations of new build. So that they are built with more sensitivity to sustainability, more energy efficient, which is the best way to lessen your usage of both electricity and gas.
Someone else trying to come.
Thinking of, someone's been something. Kind of too, like for roads infrastructure too going forward, we just got through all the Kellogg build, but thinking about building roads again for the future, in terms of, again, how are cars different maybe for electric vehicles and eventually building roads for non-driving or driverless autonomous type of thing. I mean, but thinking ahead that way, right? That we're, because those things are coming. So
Do we want to dip our toes into serious controversy and come out in opposition to something like, say, the Northwest bypass?
My vote.
The more I learn about it, the more it makes no sense whatsoever. It's going to save a few truck drivers a few minutes and they'll use it at the next truck stop to have an extra French fry. It's not going to do the city of Wichita anything good except create more sprawl. It's just, there's no sense whatsoever in it.
And it takes all the money from alternative transportation, the building of bike paths and everything else. There's zero funding.
Yeah, because it's all going into the fund for the Northwest bypass.
timeline on that, what are they?
I haven't heard lately, but KDOT, when the whole Brownback tax experiment happened, they cleaned out the KDOT budget and every project was put on indefinite hold. And I don't know
That's one of them.
where they are on trying to dig their way out of that now.
Work on.
I might comment on that. I think KDOT right now has developed a soon to be released active transportation plan for the entire state. KDOT's worked closely with WAMPO and the city and surrounding cities funding bicycle paths, pedestrian walking side paths. So I think that, and then with new money coming from the federal level, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I might throw in, based on a comment earlier, I believe by Lauren, the city is going to rewrite their master bicycle plan. And that might be a good opportunity for some, and they plan on public engagement. So that would be a good opportunity for this group to give some input into the new master bicycle plan.
I don't think we can let you retire, Jack. You just have too much information in your head that we all need.
Like I said, you're gonna have to join one of the committees, which I assume will be transportation, so probably one of them. So, we'll call you back to duty there.
All right.
Okay, anything else that we spend another 5 or so minutes on this, and what other, anyone in the room or anyone, you know, just want to hear people's visions? Go ahead, Jane.
I'd like to nominate reducing mileage altogether.
See mileage?
With public transportation and enabling other methods such as the railroad. But also specifically trucks, because we're interstates, we're at the intersection of major intersections, our truck pollution and traffic is going to grow exponentially. And Wichita's enabling that growth in truck traffic.
Anyone on Zoom where we want to committee development? Photo.
Yeah, I'd like to take a picture.
Anyone who wants to take a photo, leave it up for a second. I'll type it off and start with.
But I can type it up and send it out to everyone, so.
Thank you.
Some of us have lousy eyesight. Go close. There you go.
Yeah, they made Zoom.
Okay. If everyone's good, I will erase this and we'll type for everyone on Zoom. This will be in the meeting notes as well, or we'll have it.
Okay, so I just want to make note when we're talking about vision, and sort of the goals of this board. One of the things that was brought up in the ordinance is resiliency planning, and working towards eventual mitigation and adaptation plans for climate. So just to keep that in your minds as we formulate these groups and we think about strategy moving forward.
Read or the conversation. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Jane.
I'd like to submit again the National League of Women Voters 10 by 10, they're called. They will be popularizing that this summer, and they are 10 specifics. Do you mind if I hand you that again? Because it's a national collection of folks who've been, citizens who've been looking at it right then. I think action plan.
Some of these fit some of the ones we're going to talk about too. Okay, so we've been talking about having committees, and I think today would be a good day to determine at least which ones we want to have, and if we're able to start figuring out who might be leading each of those or developing actual committees. But at the very least, we can figure out what they're going to be, and we'll go from there. I was going to suggest that we might actually look to the EFC. They divided their projects as at least a guide for how we might create the committees. Partly, the categories are pretty solid, but we'll get to hear other ideas. But then they also have projects that they're already thinking about underneath those. We don't have to do that. We can also create completely our own list and not go that route. But I was just going to make that suggestion. So
Categories where there were.
Yeah.
9.
I think 9 committees is too many.
Feasible.
I mean, my first thought is 9 seems like a lot.
Yeah.
You guys can always change these committees. Nothing is set in stone. So, I talked to Sharon, our legal rep, and she was saying that, it's at your guys' discretion how you do this. And so you're not putting it in the bylaws that these are your committees or anything. So you have the ability to change these up.
They're ad hoc and we can change them. I think that's a good idea, just because I think if we get too many committees, we're going to get bogged down in endless committee meetings and never actually get anything done.
Well, and one other thing I would keep in mind too is that as board members for the bylaws, city regulations, we can only committee that are board members.
I believe it's 3. I will double check.
Yeah, so we can only have 3 of us on each of the committees anyway. And my thought was that we would each lead one committee, or maybe 2 of us would lead one committee, something like that.
So how does that affect, like, for instance, I'm on MAPC, but I'm also on the subdivision committee, which is an official committee of the city, and then I'm on this committee. So does that use up my 3, or do I have another slot open? Not sure, I'll have to ask.
I'm not familiar. Are there limitations on how many committees you can serve on? These are
How many boards, but I don't know if committees count as a board.
Committees don't count. So committees are much less formal.
Okay.
They're open,
So far, I'm on 2 boards and 2 committees. Okay.
so they don't have the same requirements. Like the board has very specific COMA requirements. Committees don't necessarily adhere to that as long as you're not meeting quorum. That's when COMA is triggered. So because it's only 2 or maybe 1 or 2 board members, it's pretty open, it's pretty informal. You're not required to submit minutes to the city clerk's office. You can pretty much run it how you see fit, and include, members from the public, staff, whoever, and then, use that to bring back to the board, and that's when sort of the official action happens. So if you're bringing, something for recommendation, but yes, it's definitely less strict.
I'm just writing these down so everyone can see what the ones are from the EFC, but that doesn't mean we'll keep them. So write these down. First one is energy efficiency. Makes sense. Let me need to write these bigger too.
I can only imagine on Zoom that they're not being able to see this at all.
We'll have to talk it through here in a second.
So far, she's written energy efficiency, built environment, renewable energy, water, waste recycling.
Sustainable purchasing is one from the EFC.
Sustainable purchasing. I don't know, do we really need a committee for that? Isn't the city sort of?
Probably don't. That's probably next year in a second. Transportation.
Transportation.
And looking through the strategy, this is not gosh dang it, the strategy areas and then the different things underneath. I think there's a big difference between what the actual city can do in their city-owned buildings and what the community, what we're going to encourage the community to do.
Yes. Okay. These are the ones. The last two, okay, I'm gonna start from the beginning. So we've got energy efficiency, built environment, renewable energy, water, waste and recycling, sustainable purchasing, transportation, green space, and community engagement. So that falls along what they're doing. I agree. I mean, I think if we're gonna ixnay one off the bat, probably sustainable purchasing could be a disagreement.
None of us really can have an impact on that, except that we can, once they see what we're doing, we can hopefully give them some influence on making changes in the way they do their purchasing. But I don't know what committee that might be. Unless somebody here's got some expertise in that. I don't.
And once EFC provides the final report, it might give, have, things listed under that. But that should be finalized by the end of this month, so we'll.
We've been looking at this report for a year. How can it take so long to, you can go in a book and generate a list like this? Well, anyway, it's a good list to start with.
Yeah, well, and I think it kind of falls in line with a bunch of what we were just discussing in terms of our vision. So green space goes a lot in line with trees, adding more trees, doing more in terms of natural or native grasses and whatnot. Also in terms of just creating more green space, types of things could be discussed at that committee. Thinking about any of these that anyone has any questions about off the bat.
Kind of think if you were looking to pare it down, you could almost combine renewable energy and built environment and let, and then work it from that angle, as we were talking about with chargers and building codes, so if there was the potential to narrow down, you might be able to combine those two.
You could even kind of either, take this and say built environment for renewable energy and maybe energy
Efficiency,
and,
right?
and transportation, but not together.
Right.
This built environment would go under those things.
That's true, yeah. So if I was. Oh, yeah, right, so just make that a component of that, correct, as opposed to its own
Thing.
There you go. That's a much better idea. I knew there was a way to.
There's a way to do
I know there's a way. I knew there was some connection there. It doesn't.
Goes under energy efficiency too.
No,
Right, because it could be a part of anything.
that's the goal.
But maybe what we need to say then is within these committees, I put built environment here, spell again. Really hard to spell while.
Okay, if I had to stand up there.
Yeah, you can't talk
with some people, I would, there's no way. I would.
Okay, so these, I'm just gonna kind of put a star by that they're not really, but they should be discussed.
They become a component of this, right, yeah.
That's actually how it's standard one.
In a world of bullet points, it'd be a big bullet and then two small.
Yeah, this is what we've been discussing. Well, and then of course, community engagement, built environment. Well, let's talk about that a little bit. What else would we want to see come out of each of these committees for some of the major points that we want? So built environment, I'm thinking policy, but that could also be built environment among other things, but what?
It's the thought action. You gotta end up with a to-do, right? Whether that's, maybe is just as like, to your point, it may just be education, or it may be an actual thing, but I think you gotta have something that comes out of it.
And that's the way they list it as community engagement and action.
Right, yeah. Built environment could include something like putting up, and the city may not want to do this, but making a regulation that homeowners associations cannot ban solar or charging stations, because they do that now.
I can't, why would they ban charging stations? Because
They
it's
think they're an eyesore.
they're in the
who
garage.
knows?
They're not out, they're not exterior. That's
They
what
don't have to be in the garage. They
I
can
mean,
be
not
exterior.
most people don't put them on the outside of their home like a gas pump, but
Well,
okay.
my
fair enough.
garage doesn't have electricity,
Oh, okay,
so mine is on the side of the house, but it's not a charging station. It's just a plug-in from a husband.
got it. Okay.
But, you know, they,
Interesting.
a way to keep them, because they believe that solar panels are an eyesore, but I love it when I see them, and I'm seeing them in some HOAs now. So something's changing at some of the HOAs.
So there's a lot of conversation around them. I know I've spoke, not to any Kansas one, but to two Kansas City HOAs in the last month. I've spoke at two different HOA meetings where they're considering.
Good.
The rest-
Yeah.
But to be fair, that's legislatively driven on the Missouri side. There was actually policy there to try to prevent them. That was led by the or solar, I don't want to say solar, their solar industry group, Missouri. So.
I'm gonna.
I think that's an opportunity within that education piece too, because at least the conversation that my HOA had was there's a lot of, you don't realize how far they've come to know that they're not this huge, bright, shiny thing that goes on your roof, that there's some of those solar panels that you hardly notice. And so I think that's a big just education piece of it too, of letting these HOAs know what it really is.
That's right.
About trying to figure out how to get the economic development piece in here too, whether that's a committee or that again goes under kind of what they've been talking about, like how can we use these things to also create economic opportunities for Wichita and jobs, and again, kind of what does the future look like for our youth arts? Is that, I can kind of see it going either direction. We can either have a committee on something like that, or it could be discussed in one of those.
Yeah, or like you said, it could just be another focus of one of the five of that.
Honestly, if I was 18 and in Wichita, I'd be looking to a career in wind energy. I think that's going to be what Kansas does in the future, but
Yeah.
But
we on this committee can do about that. I'm not quite sure.
exactly. I mean, to be fair, that's, if you were in the legislature this session, you would think completely different.
Yeah.
Very, right, they're working very hard to eliminate that in some cases, so.
And so maybe we should change some of our elected people.
But to your point, if I was in Wichita today, I think what's most exciting is things like the innovation campus, where they're encouraging that, I spent the first part of my career with Westar doing school presentations, and I always told those kids, you've got to think of something better. It's up to you. And now we have these opportunities to do that. So that encouraging that, giving them the space to think outside the box through those innovation,
You're here.
I think that's what's missing. It's figuring out how to provide them with that opportunity.
I think that's exactly, and I think that's one of the things we're supposed to be kind of thinking about through the committee too, and how do we create that inspiration to stay?
That incubator stuff, and we want to know your good ideas, and we want
I mean, I personally don't mind having an economic development committee in that regard. So if that's one that we're all okay with doing, talking about how do we create that. Like I was
A side effect, but I don't know that it's a direct consequence of what we're.
can be.
side effect, but I'm back on HOAs. Not only solar panels, but things like, I mean, when you add up, for instance, all the green space that HOAs have in their pool areas and their streams and their lakes and whatnot. If we could get them to stop mowing it all and start planting it in native plants and putting in more trees. I think there's other things we could do, a program of going out to HOAs and giving presentations to HOA meetings could generate multiple results, possibly.
Just adding another bullet point under things to think about in each of them. How do we, for green space, how do we create green spaces that are going to really help all aspects of our community? That type of thing, issues, all of that. So that should be something that the committees are thinking about too.
Let me give you one that I had a local business owner approach me about.
Yeah.
Because we talk all the time. Christina Grappo, she's with Viola's Pantry. She has a new pasta shop. And you've been there, Nina's been there. Oh my God, oh my God, it's so good. She makes pasta and sauces and now she has desserts. I mean, it's amazing. But Christina's frustration is that she cannot get Ben E. Keith. You know what that is? Ben E. Keith
Like
is
the
the
Cisco truck.
supplier that brings
They're like Cisco.
all her supplies, all her takeout dishes and all that. And she's having to order online, but she said, can we please just do a committee? It won't take long probably. For people who run those kind of businesses, food businesses. She said, we can bring in food trucks. We can bring in, Shane Gross, of course, is big on this with the Anchor. And she's got Reverie, she's got all these different businesses. They all know each other. She says, can we get together and meet with Benny Keith? But we get the city behind us. So Benny Keith is gonna go, oh, I guess I better go.
I don't understand so Benny Keith won't deliver to them? They don't come down here?
They won't purchase the items that they need that are made of sustainable products or that are made of.
So there's your economic development opportunity, is you create a company. We don't need a Benny Keith to do that. We need to create the company that does that for them.
That'll take too long.
And sell it on the internet to everybody else in the country that can't get
Benny
one.
Keith is their nation.
Really, if they're not willing to do it, someone else will.
Right, I mean, I totally sympathize with her stance, but I think that's that hole in the market that we just identified.
Yeah, I mean, amongst others, but yeah, that's an example.
I would never have, I wouldn't.
That they all could, that we could help them get together and talk about this so that they could try to make change because they all want this, but they just can't do it individually, but as a group, they could. So I've already got people already to do that committee.
The Benny Keith doesn't offer this nationwide or is Benny Keith local? I'm not.
Apparently it's not local. I don't.
They're not local.
Semi trucks that I see on the highway, so they're not local.
Okay. So is it just something that this particular company that's supplying other restaurants just doesn't have in their portfolio yet?
They choose not to get them because they think there's no demand,
Apparently there is.
but there is.
But again, when you're nationwide, the demand has to be enough to take advantage of economy scale. I don't know. I mean.
So we are like the restaurant capital of the United States.
Yeah, per capita, that is absolutely true statement.
So if everybody went on to this, they could have plenty to sell here in Wichita. And that's Christina's point too. If we can get everybody together so that they can offer this at a reasonable cost. It may be a little bit more, yeah.
Somewhere over at WSU in the business entrepreneurial, there's got to be somebody who would love this idea. Don't you think?
Start a business.
Yeah, start a business here. Here's the concept. Go for it.
Here's a whole market that needs built.
Well, and maybe these restaurateurs would have some ideas on that too. Maybe one of them would have.
To your point, that's a perfect example of the things that could be done here. And I'm thinking too, it kind of goes along with what you're saying with wind, but why couldn't more companies come here to Wichita? We've got Siemens and Hutch not too far away building right for wind. Why can't we have more renewable companies here if we actually make an effort to attract them? I mean, I know that the city has to a certain degree in terms of attracting companies as a whole, but if we made a concerted effort to bring more companies here, that would again create jobs for our youth that are of the future that they're attracted to and makes Wichita a producer. And it goes to it's not here on the board anymore, but my earlier goal of sustainable capital of the world. Anyway, it's a big goal. Love it. Nation or state even, but something, right? So, okay, so also going back to Zoom for a second, I want to ask you all, any thoughts? I know you can't see the board very well, unfortunately. Do you want me to reread what we have for those of you on Zoom, or any thoughts? Those of you on Zoom?
I think there's a bunch of stuff in the chat.
Bunch of stuff in, let's see. Okay. Okay, Tanya put in energy efficiency, environment, renewable energy, carbon. So these, I think, those are all the
she just
ones from,
yeah.
yeah. Or, how many? Yeah, we have ways.
I can share out these documents later too.
Make sure there's any chat that
I think that the youth education and youth outreach, I think that can go under the community engagement. I mean, the encouraging youth to think outside the box. I think that can go under community. That'll be a big one, a really big committee with a lot of tasks.
So Lauren, are you thinking that instead of having community engagement as kind of a sub of each committee or a point of each committee that they should be thinking about, that we really should take it out as a standalone committee?
No, I think that community and individual action or community engagement committee can take on that youth component of engaging with youth to see not just education, but seeing what they want for the future of Wichita. I think it can be like, I don't know, as we're talking about other things that can go underneath, instead of creating another committee, I think the youth can go under community engagement.
So as of now, we have community engagement that's kind of category of things we'd have each one. Given what she just said, do we want to reconsider?
It might be worthwhile. We seem to keep circling back to community engagement and education components of things we want to accomplish as a first step in doing everything else.
Yeah, and I think it belongs under each one, just because I think otherwise the community engagement committee is just gonna overlap all of those, but.
Maybe we have. But in a sense, though, what we could do is, I kind of agree with both sides of that it would overlap, but maybe we need a committee that would consolidate it in a sense. That's fair.
No more like when other committees get their work going, then this committee can jump in and help figure out how to educate the public on it.
Because otherwise, we're going to have every other committee trying to do a community engagement portion.
Yep, okay, I like that. And then so going to Lauren's point, under that, one of the topics would be youth engagement. Okay. That gives us 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 7 seems okay. What do you all think?
How many people are on this committee?
Let's count 1, 6, 7, 8. You're right. Yeah, it's really hard at the board.
Do it, Lauren. I not like to stand up there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll take on solid waste. I actually know people that would be happy to serve. Anybody else wants to help?
I take economic development, but others can be on
I'd
it.
like to volunteer for community engagement, transportation.
Michael, I'm going to join you on the community ones.
So can I still get the food vendors together?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Bring it to the committee. No.
We don't have a committee for that.
It's pretty lax. I mean, can be a resource to other committees. There's no hard law
Okay.
saying that you can't.
Yeah, no, I was asked to set that up, so I really.
Jack, I'm gonna volunteer you for the transportation one if I may. Be on that committee, not as a board.
Being replaced next month.
Well, not as a member.
Volunteer.
We're volunteering his free time now.
Would that be
Good,
okay?
good, good.
think I saw him nod, just write his name down.
Jack, did you accept my my volunteering you for to be on the committee of transportation, not as the board member, but as a member of it?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Way to go, Jack. Yay.
I thought you were looking at someone else off camera there.
Transportation.
I was looking at you.
All right, thank you.
How about others on the, and if you need me to repeat where we landed in terms of which committees, I'm happy to do that, but anyone have any on Zoom that they would like to join?
Community engagement for me.
And I think that builds us in terms of- we only have 3 of us, so that one's a popular one. It's a good thing we added it.
Put me down for green space and possibly water if nobody else. Put me down for green space. We'll see what happens with water.
I'm having a complete and utter blank out. I have.
Deborah Foster. That's okay. I'm very forgettable.
And
I would
Deb, the man that was here last month, he would love to be on your committee.
Right, Allison.
Yeah, Harold, yeah.
Harold would love to be.
Oh, Harold, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about our stormwater guy.
Oh,
He also.
He might.
I think he'd be good for water.
What was his name? Sorry, Greg.
Greg Allison.
Okay.
Could I make a comment about water?
Yes.
It's Jack. Oh, sorry, I'll have to turn that off. The city built a water center down in Herman Hill Park a number of years ago. And it serves 2 purposes. One is that it's cleaning up contaminated groundwater all underneath the city. The other purpose was educational. And at one time when they were properly funded and working with the local school district, they had all sorts of summer programs and water education type activities. Unfortunately, due to budget, COVID, et cetera, that facility, I think, is, from the educational standpoint, is underutilized. So whoever is working in water may want to think about how we could better use that rather expensive facility that's located down in Herman Hill Park that's dedicated to water and water quality issues.
And if you haven't been there, it's worth a trip. It's just amazing.
and the parking lot in the back is permeable pavement.
Jen, I see you on there. Would you like to introduce yourself to the board and if any of these committees sound good to you, let us know.
6 months that they're supposed to do the income renewal. It ain't no damn year, my nigga. Well, I mean, but 6 months would still be okay.
I don't know that we can hear you yet, but I'm not sure you've said anything either.
I'm Jennifer Breon from the Board of Diversity, Inclusion, Civil Rights.
So that was for 3 years.
Great. And Jen, just for background,
Money doesn't really matter.
what inspires you to be on this committee? What would you like to see out of
I
it?
still have all her credit cards and she still sends me.
Sustainability, what we were just discussing, I like what you guys were talking about. We need to redo our infrastructure for sure. Excuse me. Our infrastructure needs to be redone, and I'm trying to see the things that are coming out that are presented to this particular board. As I said, I sit on Diversity, Inclusion, Civil Rights Board, and ours is nothing like this one, nothing like this one. So the things that we're trying to do with the within the community, I think is going to be good. That's some of the things that I was looking at. I've actually been dealing with the death of my nephew, so trying to get his funeral together this week. So it's been a mess. I almost didn't make it because I was leaving the funeral trying to get here, the funeral home trying to get here. But I'm here and I'm listening and I'm learning from this group. And I think that there's a lot good that we can do. I just need to really be a little more focused on it. It's just, this has just been a bad 2 weeks right here.
Sorry to hear about your loss.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, young man.
Yeah. If for those two who maybe are on Zoom and can't see the board or thinking about which committees they might want to be on, we can also, email Nina later too, as we fill these out. So if you want to think about it a little bit before, that's fine as well. And if you decide you want to do, more than one, great. But if there is anybody else online who would like to express their interest in a particular one, that would be great.
Can you put me down for energy efficiency and if there's room, community engagement, but if there's not, it's okay too.
On which one?
Energy efficiency,
Yeah, what was the second one?
community engagement, but if there's no room, it's okay.
There's not currently, but if there's a lot of interest, I could step off and have someone else, like you'd be on it instead.
No, yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
Let me know and I'll get you on energy efficiency.
And I will help her on energy efficiency. I'm really new to this, so I don't really know what committees are supposed to do or how they're supposed to do it, so.
We'll talk about that next.
So I will help, I will definitely help, and be a part of the energy efficiency committee.
Oh, I'm like very new too. Like I honestly, yeah, I'm just writing a research paper on it right now. So that's the only reason why I'm interested in it, but yeah.
Nina, you're gonna send out that list of the committees.
I'm working on it right now.
Okay, no, I'm not rushing you at all.
I'll send it out in the chat and I'll also follow up in my email. That way you all have it. And then if you have any thoughts, you can always just let me know after. Get you some more information or assign you to.
Okay, so I'm adding member to folks who aren't actually on the board, but would be members of the committee. We've already identified might be a good, either has said they want to or might be a good fit for it. We need someone for renewable energy as well. Or we could put, one thing we could do is a whole energy efficiency and renewable all
Might be a good option.
That's a good idea.
That's good, just great, yeah, energy.
together. See,
Yeah, that makes sense.
okay, that gets us down. At least one person, hopefully. Yeah, this is a really good time. The water one, we think Greg will want to do it. But assuming that's true, we've got at least one board member on every committee, so that's good. And again, for those who are online and want to think about it, because they can't see this board as well, just email Nina with which one you'd like to be a part of. Tam, you bring up a good point though. So what does this mean?
I was not raising my hand. I'm like, I have no idea.
So I think kind of as a first step, I got two first steps simultaneously. One is thinking about who do you know or who do we collectively know, even if we're not on that committee, that might be a good fit for it. And we could do that via email and send again through Nina ideas of folks who we think would be good fits for any of these spots.
What's the ideal number if you find it?
I think I would keep it relatively small but mighty, right? Like 6 people. Like 6.
Yeah, we don't want 14 people on the committee.
It's hard to schedule.
More frequently, so keeping schedules in line.
Yeah, I would say that if we
5 or 6, maybe.
5 or 6 max, somewhere in there. In terms of how often you meet, that's a little bit up to you as the board members leading it, as long as it's effective. And then, based off of which one, some people you recruit are going to have ideas on this too, but I think the idea is at each of these meetings going forward, once we have these committees set up, that each head of the committee, whatnot, will report back here saying, okay, these are the things we talked about. Here's what we would recommend to the board to therefore recommend to the city, and start creating that pipeline of ideas up. And I think it's nice too, because this also fits our mandate of bringing more of the community into this. So
What do you think about inviting, because I'm thinking with the solid waste or however you have that listed. Did you get a chance to look at that? Susan Erlenwine sent me that. She's with the county and she does solid waste. And she would have a great deal to contribute. to that committee if she had the time and was willing to. I would also, of course, get a hold of Jesse Marks.
Yes.
We can definitely get compost started. It won't take that long. He knows how to do it. So, but
I definitely want to have
I can
people.
ask Susan if she wants.
One thing we can also do is, I'll go ahead and update the website so that we list out our committees and who we're looking for. And we should be able to do a social media post as sort of a call to action.
That would be really good.
Is this mine or is this yours?
That was mine, but I was just passing it around.
Paper, the only place I know to take paper and cardboard is down at the
Miller.
no, well, okay, them and the,
The Indy landfill.
no, there's a southwest Warehouser, thank you, I was blanking on. The
Miller Center used to
Warehouser
be the
thing is the only place I know where you can just go and drop it off anytime.
But look at the amount of stuff that could be composted. Oh, this is amazing.
By that and then.
See, gigantic sized, or these tables, compost bins in my backyard, just from my little yard.
Yeah.
It's the 3 other yards I garden.
Yeah, we could definitely, and if you do commercial compost, not home compost, it gets a lot hotter. And all those little things that you see that look like plastic that say compostable on them, they don't compost in your backyard, but they could here.
Next time.
And so we really need to get that started.
Oops, sorry, we were kind of sidebarring there for a second.
Yeah, we were too.
Yeah, we were too.
So what we were just chatting about is in terms of kind of timeline and how we get these going. So if the city does a call to action, we're also recruiting the people that we think might, between ourselves and them. Maybe what we do at this next, in the April meeting, is solidify who's going to be on those committees and go a little deeper into what each committee is doing and whatnot at that meeting. And then in May, that's between April and May, hopefully you've had a first meeting with your committee and start that reporting back process.
So just to clarify, as if we know of somebody who might be interested on a committee, do we send them to Nina and then they apply, or is it first come, first serve? How will that building of those committees work?
I think we might use next one, honestly, to discuss who we think would be good on it based off of interests. And since we're going to try to keep this to 5 to 6 people or so per committee, that we actually have a little bit of a discussion about each one and see what makes the most sense. Hopefully that actually, does that work?
So I would also say, you might have your 5 or 6 main people who are contributing, but I wouldn't necessarily limit that to other people if they can make the time. Just as far as scheduling, you might want to just have certain like stakeholders that are always going to be there and have that expectation, but I wouldn't, public participation if there's other people who want to get involved.
They want to sit in the meeting.
Right.
And contribute.
It's pretty open, so there's no becoming a member sort of thing. It's just it's super informal. So I can find out some more information on structure if we need to set up any sort of agreements as far as expectations, but
Converse way of doing it too would be, okay, so we come in and then we see where there are gaps that we still need to fill. That could be another way of looking at it.
Just to make sure I understand this clearly too, we're not asking people to be on an endless committee. This is like a relatively defined length of process, and we're going to achieve a goal and then they're going to be free to go be on another committee, right? Or not?
They're free to come and go as they want, right?
I think they are now in a sense. Like if someone gets on the committee and they just lose interest and they go off into the distance, and that's fine.
Okay.
Or if, for instance, let's say, okay, 6 months from now, I'm really tired of the community engagement committee or something, and you want to join it, then we just kind of naturally swap it at that point. I think
Well, I just found it easier to recruit people, but maybe this will be much easier than I think it will be.
I've had a lot of people already contact me with interesting committees, and I was like, well, as soon as we have them, I'll let you know.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
so I think
wonderful then.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of good buzz and interest about this committee still, so.
I may have a false image just because I'm so antisocial, but
You don't come across as antisocial.
I would give ourselves a little bit of grace with this, just because we might find that things need to change, and that's okay. Or maybe there's a committee that is just on there forever, but the projects and the goals continually change based on what our needs are. And so it's pretty free flowing in that sense. So I wouldn't, we shouldn't get bogged down by the definitions of these committees so much, because it's very fluid at this point.
I agree. Although I will say, looking at these, I think all of these are going to be on for a very long time. But to your point, I mean, I think that really what this is supposed to do is generate ideas and get people who have expertise in the areas helping us, so that basically to make these meetings more productive in a sense, that once we've generated ideas and then we bring them, we address them here. And if we think it's something we want to take to the city, then we vote on it and we take it to the city. So I'm hoping the committee produces a lot of good stuff for us. That goes. Any other questions we could answer tonight?
What happened with the League of Women Voters proposed speaker event?
That's something we're still working on. We're actually thinking of doing a series. So opening it up to the public, and then having one or two speakers at a time on different topics within sort of the broader subject of environmental justice. It's been a little stalled because I know I've been busy, and everyone else has as well. So we're still working on it. We're hoping to have a first one in April, but it's still in the works.
Do you have responsibility?
Just this one, but I do.
There's a day job too.
Yeah, this was. So I also run our air quality program, and that's my main role. So this is sort of supplemental to that.
You have a venue for the League of Women Voters things?
Yeah, so Evergreen just redid their community center and library, and so they have some nice event spaces and the open schedule right now. So we're hoping to utilize that, and hopefully for future events as well. Like if we decide we want to do some public outreach or some workshops with the public, that would be a great option to utilize.
Will we have access to some space for our committee meetings as well?
So if you want to meet in person, we can set that up. I might recommend doing that over Zoom.
To me, it's a lot harder to accomplish things when you're on Zoom than it is when you're together.
The public library.
And yeah, except if we had more than 4 or 5 people, we would need more space than those little meeting rooms. And since we probably don't really know each other very well, are we ready to get into a little room with strangers yet? I mean,
so I suppose that's
may or may not be open.
That's the trade-off. So I mean, you have virtually meeting on one hand, and you have in person with a smaller space. Unfortunately, this boardroom books up really fast.
Oh yeah, no, I can't imagine.
For smaller committees, I would definitely recommend a more easily accessible place like one of the library branches for sure. Maybe advanced learning might be a good option as well. I know a lot of space and it's a nice facility, so.
There's odd places around town, like Mark Books, they have a downstairs room that they will let community groups use. So there's like places like that around.
Right, and you guys,
It's not accessible. Yeah.
And summer's
It's true.
true. You can find a park.
Yeah, I can do that. Also,
Park shelters are not available without renting them, but.
Oh, I just meant the park. I just meant somewhere.
Outside.
I didn't even
Outside. A lot of your stuff while it
I
wasn't.
just meant the picnic table or
well, exactly.
chairs, look like your front yard.
Tony was saying that the water center might be a good place.
Right, and you guys have brought that up before. I believe they are still closed due to COVID. At least that's what it says on the website.
Should open up.
Committee head can decide what makes sense for your committee.
Right, so you guys can talk, amongst your committee groups, and then if you need my help setting something up, I can definitely be a resource for that.
Like I said, we could potentially with each of these, maybe eventually do some sort of, not at the same time, but maybe do a series of presentations and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot for one. So it'd be like rolling.
Yeah, like 1 a month, like you start with, we kind of go down the list, maybe not, community engagement wouldn't be one, but.
Or
that's
any
what we
immediate
do.
like action items that need votes on a recommendation or something. Have to take precedence, but.
Yeah. And we could say, to your point, so let's say, we say we're gonna be the committee heads for a year. And then if someone else wants to come on, at that point, we can kind of switch something like that too.
I may just be jaundiced. We may be fighting people off who are desperate to get on these committees. Come help us.
Some that have that, some that don't. Right? But that's okay. Any other questions also on Zoom that we can answer next before we adjourn? Or any thoughts?
So what do we need by next meeting?
Next meeting, I think between now and next meeting, we're recruiting. So the city is recruiting, we're recruiting. And then we see where we stand in terms of what the committees look like next time. And then at that point too, we can discuss any other questions that may come up in our minds about what the committee would be doing and then all of that, kind of clarify. With the goal of you would actually schedule a meeting sometime between April and the May meeting with that committee. Get it going.
Well, do we also need to define more specifically what these committees are going to be doing? Like green space, I mean, that's pretty broad.
Right, what's the problem?
Some of that's going to probably actually come from the committee itself, to some degree, right? So with green space, you identified in our vision session, if some of the areas that you would really like to see happen in Wichita, so you might start the conversation around that. But then also keeping these things in mind, the committee, or so community engagement again, within your own group. Any built environment that you would need to be talking about, any regulations or recommendations that your committee thinks would be great for the city to do, and considering diversity and inclusion and equity and within how this is all being done. Those are some of the kind of sub points for each of the committees. And we can go over more of that next week too, or next month, in terms of anything else we want to make sure that each committee is about. I think that's a good starter list of.
And we had talked about in a previous meeting, wanting to put forth projects that could be done in a year or that were considered easy wins. So that might be a guiding sort of a guiding principle and maybe to start off these committee actions.
Yeah,
Like
good identity.
that short-term thing, the short-term win, and then the long, maybe
Short and long.
short.
What's the date of the April meeting?
Let's see, also at 4:30. That is a afternoon meeting. Let's see. I believe we said third Wednesday. Or was this one third Wednesday? So maybe it was fourth Wednesday on. So the 27th.
Okay.
Double check that. But we should be staying pretty standard from now on with that alternating after.
Okay, well, because the date is after Earth Day, I would like to propose that we organize with the city council, that they do the declaration of Earth Day and all of us be there. And be in the picture, show that we're part of this and we care about what's going on.
I like that.
On Friday morning, the 22nd.
Whenever it is.
Birthday's Friday, the 22nd.
Okay, they don't do a city council meeting on Friday. though, do
No.
they?
The one before.
It'll be
There you go.
So April 19th, I will talk to our communications team about getting that on.
Great.
Make a proclamation.
Yeah, proclamation.
A proclamation.
Personally, during that, I'm doing a 2-week trip with son, so I probably will not be at either. But so either Nina or our vice chair will be running the next meeting. I will not.
Life gets in the way all the time.
Yeah.
And with April, you know, when I'm gonna send out invites, because you won't be there, I do need to be very certain that we'll make quorum, so just make sure you send me a yes or no, as soon as you're able. I think we're okay, but I just want to double check.
I'll make sure that the information that I recruit to economic development one is with Nina too, so you guys can discuss it.
Do we need a photograph of that too?
Probably a good idea. I'll say one more time, any last closing thoughts or questions?
I want to point out that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, big report was submitted released a couple of days ago, or at the end of February. And it said, basically, we have far less time than we thought. Far less time. That it's way worse than we thought. And there will be plenty of other communities because there will be much immigration places that are not livable. It's way worse than we thought. And I hope we give that utmost speed and consideration.
There has to be some urgency in things that we talk about. If you all would like to read this book, and for the folks, I don't know where the camera is. But The Future Earth, worthwhile. Highly recommend it to you. And we were recommended this by Maggie Ballard, the new city council member. So happy to say that.
All right, guys, I'm gonna say meeting adjourned for the evening.
Okay.
4 minutes early, way to